Zombie apocalypse with adult content? Hell yeah, it's Hentai High School of the Dead. Wait a minute, this isn't High School of the Dead. Get that out of here. We're gonna take a look at a visual novel that explores a classic take on the zombie survival genre, but with a case of good old Japanese horny. Today, we're gonna take a look at the first volume of I Walk Among Zombies. The premise is simple enough. Yuusuke awakens in a world where zombies have overrun civilization, but he finds out that zombies don't attack him. With the power of being the main character, we are shown how Yuusuke survives in this lawless world, a world where even Pornhub is taken down. Now, let's talk about the production. I Walk Among Zombies' background art is great in illustrating the grim, drab atmosphere and desolate world. A particular highlight are the zombie designs. Each zombie CG is solely dedicated to showing off how intensely detailed and unique each zombie is. It's quite impressive how frightening they look, almost to the point where they look like they're from a completely different work and not a hentai visual novel. The soundtrack is surprisingly calm for a zombie atmosphere. Compared to your typical haunting, unnerving tracks from other zombie works, the few tracks here feel more melancholy with that tinge of chill vibes, which is unusually strange. It's nothing too special, but also not too unfitting either. I will give I Walk Among Zombies credit for presenting a firmly traditional zombie apocalypse story. We follow Yuusuke as he casually explores the world taken over by zombies. The visual novel reads like a documentation log as Yuusuke details his observations about the zombies and his activities exploring the world. It's a generic approach, but simple in that regard, and as we approach the ending to this volume, we are introduced to more insightful details to the mystery of how these zombies function. It's just a shame that this volume ends too quickly to really capitalize on it, because it just kinda ends. Now, there's no avoiding it. Yuusuke is not the most heroic protagonist in this world. With a cynical and scornful attitude, he could really care less about people if they aren't useful to him. This doesn't mean he has no compassion or decency for people, but he would still prioritize his own well-being over others. You could argue his crude behavior for survival purposes, but it still doesn't excuse him for being a dick or whipping out his dick. Yuusuke is a man who values his own survival and motives and acts to satisfy his urges, especially of the sexual variety. This brings up a notable point of confliction about the H scenes in this visual novel. This visual novel has a considerable amount of H scenes in it, most of which are not of the vanilla variety, involving a zombie heroine and sexual favors in exchange for safety. It's easily the type of H scenes not many people will be easily fond of and will be an immediate turnoff for any of you innocent-minded individuals out there. Mitsuki, the female lead, is an individual that had her life suddenly turned upside down by this zombie pandemic. She prioritizes her only remaining family and complies with the demands of our main character in order to secure food and safety for herself and her little brothers. Unfortunately, that's pretty much all there is to Mitsuki. There's nothing that makes her stand out from any other nameless citizen affected by the zombie outbreak. What development she has can be attributed to a case of Stockholm Syndrome, and that's not something I would consider personal development. And no, getting better at sex does not count as personal development. This visual novel has a strange balance. It wants to be a visual novel that can go deeper into its zombie apocalypse setting, but it also has those sudden moments of H scene content, where the story says, "Babe, it's 4 p.m, it's time for your daily dicking." It feels out of place, but I mean, we gotta have our self-fulfillment horny moments somewhere, right? Not really. I Walk Among Zombies is a rare visual novel embracing a traditional zombie apocalypse setting with an anti-hero and a considerable number of H scenes to give it that uniqueness factor. The visual novel does well at setting up its world the characters live in, but the characters themselves aren't that attractive, with no real compelling personality to give you any real reason to care about them. If you're looking for this type of premise specifically, this might pique your interest. Pardon you can deal with the questionable sexual motives and situations. It's not a bad first volume, but there's a lot more they can do to clean up and refine it. I would recommend this visual novel more if it emphasized more of the world and character building. Instead, this first volume remains underwhelming. Fortunately, the series is made up of 3 volumes, so the story continues after this. Whether or not this series can survive like Yuusuke and Mitsuki though, is up to the next volume. I give the first volume of I Walk Among Zombies a 3 out of 5. But that's like on the lower end threshold where it barely beats out a 2.